Well, that just happened. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, it's Kevin again for The Leftovers, Season 2, Episode 7, A Most Powerful Adversary. And no surprise, this was an amazing episode. However, I gotta say, this was probably a very different episode of The Leftovers than I think we've had, because The Leftovers is a show that normally is character driven and doesn't really have too much going on. Well, there's stuff going on, obviously, but it's more driven through the characters' revelations. And while this was definitely one of the more plot heavy episodes. A lot happened in this episode, and holy shit, especially the ending. I don't know what's gonna happen, and I love that. I love that I have no idea what's gonna happen. On the rest of this season. Sorry this review is so late, guys. I haven't had time to really review it today. I've been very busy. But with that said, let's just get into this episode. So many amazing things about this episode, which was mainly Kevin-centric. I know a lot of people don't really like Kevin as a main character. I think he is a really great character. I know there are a lot of other more compelling characters, but I think this episode proved why Kevin is such a great character. Definitely. But let's get into this episode. Now, was this episode as good as last week's? I'm not really sure. Honestly, The Leftovers is a show that every episode is just amazing. That's how this season is turning out, and let's just get into it. So Kevin is sleeping, and right away he finds himself handcuffed to the bed once again. And Patti tells him that Nora's gone. Today is going to be a hard day. And that was huge when we find out right away that Nora's gone. She says she grabbed a suitcase, threw some clothes in it, grabbed the baby, and tiptoed out. And she says she told him not to tell her, and he says that's bullshit. She says she saw her do it, and she barely even looked at him. He says if he saw her, where'd she put the key? And he calls for Nora, and she says that she's gone. And what's very interesting here is because we know, I kind of feel like Nora left not just because of Kevin, but also, of course, Erica. She doesn't feel like she's safe with the Murphys. I feel like that's another reason why she left. So Jill comes in, asks who he's talking to, and Patti says to not tell her. He says nobody, and he says Nora didn't leave him the key, and tells her to run downstairs and grab his toolbox. She asks where, because obviously he needs to uncuff himself, and she asks where Lily is. He says he guesses she's with Nora, and she asks him what's going on. Patti says to not tell her, and Patti says to not, again says not to tell her. He says to just run down. She goes. Patti recalls the day that Neil left, and Kevin says that Nora wouldn't leave him, and Patti says she would, and she didn't leave her, and he kind of didn't leave her any choice once he told her about her, and when he tells her his daughter, she'll leave, and when he tells his daughter, she'll leave him too, and very interesting. So this was a really great opening scene, I have to say. She finds this letter, and he says to give it to him, and, basically Jill finds the letter. She asks what he did. He opens it up. He tells her to stop. She reads it all. It says Mary and the baby are with him, and it basically, it's him. Excuse me. It simply says this, Mary. Excuse me. It simply says, Mary and the baby are with me, don't call. And that's how the episode begins. Basically, Jill leaves. Kevin says he can fix this. Patti says she said it was going to be a hard day. And I thought that was an incredible beginning. I mean, there's so much uncertainty in this entire episode. Why did Nora leave? Is Kevin really seeing Patti? Or is he just going crazy? It's very interesting. And Ann Dowd, this entire episode, holy shit, she was great. Honestly, Patti is great. I really loved her in this episode. So, basically, then we see Kevin leaves Nora a message, and he said, which he does several times in this episode, he says he just needs to know where she is, and he knows what he said is crazy, but he's not, and they need to talk about this. He hangs up, and Patti says she hopes she calls back, and Michael is then at church, and this is the only scene that's not in Kevin's perspective in the episode. Jill comes in, she tells him she was right, she knew something was going on with her family, and now Nora's gone, and took Lily, and she left. He asks what happened, and she says her dad fucked up, which he is upset. She's swearing in church, but she doesn't care, and I really do love these two, I have to say. They just bounce off each other very well. He says to tell him, and she says that Kevin's losing his mind, tells him about the handcuff, and tells him he sleepwalks, and doesn't even know where he goes. Which, Michael seems surprised about that. Kevin sleepwalks. Very interesting. We find out why later, but she says he talks to someone else, like her grandfather, which got him locked up in a mental institution. He asks how she knows the voices aren't there, and she says they're not. He says he talks to someone who's not there, God, and he talks to someone that's not there, of course, God, and, that's true. I mean, definitely God, if you think about it, is a mythical being. And she asks if God is the one that's telling him that they can fool around but can't fuck, or is that Jesus or the Holy Ghost? She clearly wants to have sex with him while he doesn't, and she says she gets the three confused. She says she doesn't know why they're not talking to her. He says they can't do it because he doesn't want to do it, and he says he thinks she's amazing, but they barely know each other, and he doesn't. And if he loves her yet, she calls him, he doesn't know if he loves her yet. So I thought that was a really great scene. I like that Michael's willing to wait, but she doesn't want to wait. It's, it's much different than what you usually see. You usually see the girl wanting to wait while the guy is putting pressure on him, and here was reversed. She doesn't want to wait while Michael does want to wait, and I like that. So she then calls him Reverend and leaves. She obviously is pretty annoyed with him. They don't break up, though. This is not a breakup. We find out that they're still together in this episode. So Kevin goes to a locksmith. He's with, and the locksmith is with his son. He's learning this language in which Patty learns. Very interesting. He asks Kevin how he's doing, and he says he was wondering if he could help him out. Patty says to tell him it was through sex, and Kevin says he was just hoping he could get it off. The locksmith looks at it. He says it's a police issue. Kevin says he's a cop, and the locksmith says he needs some form of ID and, some sort of police badge, anything. And Kevin says it was an accident because, he needs to make sure that Kevin wasn't arrested or something. And, the locksmith says he needs some form of ID. Kevin says it was an accident. Patty says to be honest. Kevin says to shut the fuck up. And the locksmith thinks obviously he's talking to him because he obviously doesn't see Patty. So he tells him to leave. He apologizes. And she says that she's just trying to help. And, definitely a really great scene. I really like the scene between Kevin and Patty. I really enjoyed all the scenes between them in this episode. He gets in the car and asks him what his plan is. He tells her to shut up and asks her what she wants. He asks why she keeps following him, and if she wants something, just fucking say it. She says she's glad he finally asked. There is something he needs to do. And she tells him this ridiculous story about this artifact in Cairo, Egypt, they need to find, and then, that if he finds this chalice, he needs to fill it up with, his semen or whatever. And you can obviously tell it's fake, so she lets him know that she's fucking with him and tells him she has no fucking idea what he's supposed to do. And this, I think, made the Patty character a lot more interesting. She doesn't have an asshole with a halo giving her instructions. He says she killed herself, and the next thing she knows, she's stuck with him. So she's stuck with him and doesn't know why. She doesn't know why she's there. And he says to leave him alone. She's destroying her life. She says he is, and she just gets to watch it. He tells her to go away, and he's begging her. And it's a really powerful stuff. Obviously, he wants her gone, but she really doesn't know how to control any of this. She doesn't really know what's going on. So he then sees Michael, who comes in the car, and we realize that he sees Patty as well. We're led to believe that. And he knows he went to see him. He says he needs him to get out of his truck, and he asks if her name is Patty, and she dressed in white. He asks how he knows that, and says Virgil told him if he wants to get rid of her, he can help, and he can't remember how to get there. He can give him in directions. And he gives him the directions, and they drive off. Michael tells him to wait a minute, and he knocks on the door, and Virgil answers. Now, we find out in this scene that Virgil is Michael's grandfather. So now we know, and I love, like I said, something about the show is how little, how they ambiguously reveal things. They do that very, very well. This is a great example of that. This is Michael's grandfather. So we're assuming to believe this is John's father, and Virgil answers. Patty says he is a solution to all their problems. Virgil says that Michael says he's a sleepwalker, and he doesn't remember coming there, and that's why Michael was obviously concerned about him sleepwalking. So he says he doesn't, and he says to come in, and they will go over it again. Patty then stays in the car. Michael tells him the three's a crowd. Michael asks if he remembers, and basically, we get this scene with Virgil and Kevin, and this is by far the most we've had with Virgil in any episode. Virgil asks if he remembers seeing him and at the visitor center the day he got there, and asks if he recalls what he said to him. And Kevin said that he said he could help him with the situation, and Virgil says because he felt him clinging on to her like the plastic they put over a plate of food so it won't get bad. So, Kevin remembers some little details here and there, but there are a lot of things that he doesn't remember. And he says he invited him over and he pretended to not know what he was talking about. But later that night, he came in knocking, which Kevin has no recollection of whatsoever. He doesn't remember anything that Virgil's talking about. So he says that he was asleep, and he tells him to wake up. Kevin says he's not asleep. Virgil says he'll take his word for it, and he asks if he remembers it, what he said to him the last time he was here. And Virgil says he told him everything that was going on. He also asks how he could cast her out, and Kevin says it sounds like an exorcism. Virgil asks if he's had the signs that Regan did in The Exorcist, and he says he hasn't. He says that's because she's not in him, she's on him. And this is very interesting. He says if he wants to get her off of him, he can't do it. It's on his turf, but he's got to go to hers, the other place, and he asks how he does that. And Virgil says that he dies. Virgil actually says that I want you to die. And he says he doesn't understand. He says he understood perfectly the last time. And we realize that when Kevin tied that cinder block to his knee, he was indeed trying to kill himself so he could get rid of Patty, which I thought was definitely very interesting. So basically, he says that the quake pretty much spared his life, and he says that basically he says that he basically has to look at this in two ways. He either is someone looking out for him, or he has a most powerful adversary. Now, at the end of this episode, I feel like it's a little bit of both. I really do. Kevin asks who he is, and he says he's just someone who once had an adversary of his own, once that makes him do terrible things, and for those things he was shot in the chest and the belly, and in that foul machinery below the waist, which transgressed the laws of men, and when he did go over, he did battle with his adversary and vanquished him, then he was reborn. So, you were pretty much led to believe that Virgil was a bad man, but now he's kind of a reborn again, Christian, and I like seeing that. And I thought that was definitely a really, great scene here. And the other thing I really liked about this is the idea of just her possibly being this adversary. What is she really? There's been parts where I think that Patty is a conscience, but then there's been parts of the show where I think Patty is the enemy, and I like the way they explore both possibilities here. Kevin then says Michael's his grandson. John went to prison for attempted murder, and Virgil says that he did. Kevin asks what he did to him. He says he hurt him a long time ago, and then he hurt him back, and then he freed him. He tells Kevin to let him free him, and he asks if he's going to kill him. He says he will temporarily, and Kevin gets out of there. Obviously, he's freaked out. I mean, he's basically telling him you need to die temporarily. So Virgil says to come back when he's ready, any day or night. He drives away, goes into the woods, yells for Patty, tells her to come out. She says to get a grip, and he asks where she was. She says she was around. He says she lied to him, and she says she's sorry, and he says that night she said she was with him the whole time, that she saw the girls disappear and saw him try to kill himself, but she left out the part where he went to Virgil. Obviously, if you remember a couple weeks ago, Patty talked about, oh yeah, I saw you kill yourself. She didn't talk about anything with Virgil. And she asked what he would have done if the solution to all his problems was a magical black man sitting on the edge of town that's just borderline racist. And Kevin says that Virgil knows who she is and knows how to get rid of her. She slaps him, asks why the fuck he's out there in the woods calling for her. This man gave him a solution. He ran, and she asks if he thinks she's scared to do battle with him. She says she's so desperate to do it, and she says to battle right now and fucking die. And he says he has responsibilities. He's a father, and she says maybe Jill would be better off without him. And it's very interesting. I mean, we're starting to see the season 1 side of Jill again this episode, which I like seeing. So, obviously it's sad, but I like seeing that. So Kevin calls Nora again, leaves another message. Patty asks what she needs, and Ranger Carvey then calls him, and this is a very interesting scene here. He says the visitor center gave him his cell. There's a woman at the gate asking him if he's saying that she's his wife, and it's Laurie. And I love that we finally saw Laurie again, because we knew the storyline had to tie in somehow. Of course, we knew that Laurie called Nora, and we knew that we had to see that some point in this episode, and I thought they handled it perfectly, I have to say. Really, all the scenes with Amy Brennan, holy shit, she really gave an amazing performance in this episode. And especially because this is the first time that Kevin's actually seen her since she was in the GR, it was great to see. And basically, he asks if she's there right now. The man says he can't let her in without a wristband or reservation. He goes down to the Rangers, and he says his name, and they ask to bring Laurie. She goes up to Kevin, and he realizes that she's talking, and he asks what she's doing there, and she says she knows she doesn't have every right to be there, and she knows she doesn't have any right to be there to bother him, and he has every right to move on. She respects his values, but she needs to talk to Tommy. She pretty much thinks that Nora wasn't telling the truth. She was just saying that to sympathize with Laurie, and that Tommy really is there. So she realizes he's not there. He asks when she talked to Nora, and she says it was last night, and he says Tommy's not there. He hasn't spoken to him or seen him in over a year. She realizes, then she asks why he thinks he would come to her, and she says he's in touch with Jill. They text all the time, which Kevin did not know about, obviously, and he realizes that Tommy's been with her, and he asks if she's okay. She says she's fine, and asks what she did and what happened and why she's there. She asks if he's okay. He says he's great and he's terrific. She says she shouldn't have come, and he says she won't leave, and he's terrific, and he tells her not to leave, then yells at her to go home, and just a really sad scene overall. I mean, this is the first time he's seen his wife, and she can talk, and now she's wanting their son back. He just didn't really want to deal with any of this. It's just more stress to add to his plate. So, Kevin then drives, and the palm print on the car that the girls disappeared from, and basically we see John. And John asks him if he got the flyer about the palm print on the car the girls disappeared from. He figured that he'd give an opportunity to get on the right list, and he says he's not here for that. He says he was hoping he could help him out with the handcuffs, and he says it was Nora's idea, and he says his secret is safe with him. I love that John thinks it was through sex. Thought that was pretty funny. He gets the guy to help him. He tells Kevin to test the palm print, and he does so. John says another innocent man exonerate and thanks him. Obviously, the palm print, though, is Kevin's, and John doesn't know that yet. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens to that, because obviously, again, he doesn't know that's really, Kevin's. So his one of the mechanics there, Cedric, says he couldn't find the cutters, and he says he must have taken them. John gives him the name of a locksmith that can help him out, and to tell him he sent him there. Patty says that he went there to get free and he got caught. She says the only time she truly felt free was when she killed herself, and he was so afraid, but she wasn't, because it was finally over, and that's freedom. So she really feels content with herself, and obviously that's why he doesn't, because he's kind of living in this bubble and in this lie, and she knows that. So he goes home to find Jill, and she asks him if he fixed it. He says she's not returning his calls, and she asks if he's going to tell her what he did, and he says it's complicated. She says she bets it's not. She asks if he's pretending, and she says she believed him when he said he loved Nora, and when he said he wanted to adopt Lily and be a family, and he says it's all he wants, and she asks what he's going to do. He says he doesn't know, and she says to please figure it out, because this is twice that this has happened, and obviously, again, you're really starting to see those old signs of Jill come back, which I really love seeing here. I mean, those sides of Jill, it's nothing I thought we'd ever see again, but I really thought we were in for redeem Jill, but now that Nora's back, she thought she could start over. Now this is a complete repeat of what happened with Laurie, and Jill obviously doesn't want that. She doesn't want to be depressed. She wants to be happy. She wants to be happy. She wants to feel good about herself, and with Nora not there, Nora just packing up and leaving, obviously she's not going to feel happy. Nora was a lot of things to her. She's kind of like the motherly figure, and obviously she's really hurt right now. So Kevin then goes to Laurie's apartment, and she says she's going to leave first thing in the morning. He asks if they can talk, and he tells Laurie about Patty, and she asks what she was wearing. He says she's wearing white, and he asks for a smoke. She asks where he hid them, and she asks where he hid them, and when they were married, and he says it was in the trunk of the car. And I love this little reveal here. Laurie never knew that Kevin smokes, of course. She always knew that he hid the cigarettes, and it's a really satisfying reveal, because it's something we found out in the flashback episode that I thought really paid off well here. So she asks what Patty said to him, and he tells her what she said, and now she says nothing. And she says a few hours ago he was telling her to go home, and now they're here. She asks if she's telling him to do something, and she asks if she was there at the gates, and he says no. She says it makes sense, since she'd want to stay far away from her as possible, because she could prove that she doesn't exist. And Laurie's theory here, it's a bit crazy, I will say that, but I think it is pretty plausible. I think her theory definitely holds a lot of weight. I'm going to say that. It holds a lot of weight. It does make sense, and I think it could honestly be kind of true. Definitely. So, I like her story overall. And Kevin asks how. Laurie says she could ask him to have her tell him something that only they would know, and she wouldn't be able to do it. He says she tells him things he wasn't around for, like Neil, and Laurie says she was her therapist for over 3 years, and she told her about Neil. So that's why he knows about Neil. And he says he doesn't remember. She says if he was one of her patients, she would say you never tell someone who's in the midst of a psychotic break that they are in the midst of a psychotic break, but he's not her patient, so she's going to tell him the truth. What he's seeing is not, and she tells him that what he's seeing is not real. She knows his dad struggled with this as well, and he says she's there, she's right there, she's real. She asks if he believes that, and she says when the mind is in distress, it will grasp at any construct that makes it feel better. And after the 14th, they were all in emotional distress, and they all need to feel better, so they made all of them susceptible to false belief. And the reason she knows is because Tommy and her use it. So we find out in the scene that that whole thing with Tommy being Holy Wayne is bullshit. It's not true. They can't actually do that. And Tommy hated this lying, and she said it didn't matter. She said they had a fight. She says they believed every single one of them because their brains would rather rely on magic than deal with feelings of fear and abandonment. And that's true. Those are feelings we don't want to deal with. We will look for any other kind of solution to get away from those terrible feelings, because we just don't want to deal with those feelings. I mean, who wants to deal with that? So she said all of them turned someone who can just turn it off, and that's why she joined the GR. Now he is manifesting the leader of that cult because he needs someone to turn it off. And she tells him that there's no Patty, there's only him, and he asks what he should do. She says he needs to go on medication, maybe go away for a little while. She says what he's dealing with is very serious, and she knows what's scary, but that's what he needs to do. He needs help, and he asks if she changed her last name. She says she didn't. She says he can give her a wristband and ask her to come with him if she's there. Then she'll leave him alone just till he figures out, and she says she does think it's a good idea. Obviously, she doesn't think Jill is gonna want to see her, because obviously the last time that they saw each other, Laurie tried to kill her. So they go to their house, and Kevin calls for Jill. She's not home. He says her boyfriend lives next door. So, yes, her and Michael are still together, luckily, and she's probably with him. He tells Laurie to come in. He shows her the guest room. He says he's sorry about the dog, and again, it was a really nice apology here. I like seeing Kevin make up for things he didn't think was a big deal now, but now he knows is a big deal, and he says he's sorry about the dog, and he says she wanted to get a puppy, and he was kind of a dick about it. She says she forgot that, and he says he thinks about it quite a lot. In fact, it probably is on his mind very much all the time. And she says consider himself forgiven. He gets a call, and it's Nora. And I love that we got the scene with Nora. I was worried we weren't going to see her, but luckily we do see her in this episode. She says to take it. He asks how she is and how's Lily. She says to stop calling him. He says he wants to know where she is, and she says she doesn't want to talk with him. She's seeing a dead woman. He says he knows he should have told her sooner, but when it started like they promised each other, but he was scared she would run, and she did. She says there's a sign of the key under the pillow, and Patty was simply blocking the key, which was interesting. So he tells her he loves her and tells her he has a way he can get better, but he needs to know if she believes him. If he looked at her in the eyes and told her she was gone, that she knew that she was. And Nora asks how, and she says it doesn't matter. He just needs to know that when he does that, she believes him, because he would never lie to her ever. He asks if she would, and she says she would, and she asks if she would come back, and she says she'd like that, and I'm hoping that things are going to be good between Nora and Kevin. But then we get to the ending of this episode. Laurie sees all the pictures of their family without her. Jill comes in, sees Laurie. They take one glance at each other, and Jill wants nothing to do with her. She's asking Kevin what the fuck she's doing here, and he has uncuffed himself from his bed, and now he's left. So obviously, the big question is, where is he? Jill doesn't know where he's going, and the ending of this episode obviously is what you guys want me to talk about. I know you want to talk about the ending of this episode so badly. Because these final 5 minutes, I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. I mean, I was so surprised that he went back to Virgil's house, but he does. He goes back to Virgil's house, and Michael is there. Now, some people have had a theory. Some people have had a theory that Michael might be sexually abused by Virgil. I don't really think it works. It makes sense, though. I mean, it would make sense. That's why he hurt the family, but I don't know. I don't think they were, he was sexually harassing them. I think instead they were just talking. They got into heated arguments. I think things are getting very tense between Virgil and Michael. I mean, we're going to have to find out more what's going on there. We'll have to see, I guess. So Kevin asks what's going on with Virgil, she says, and Virgil says that Michael was just leaving. Kevin asks how they do this, and he says to just tell him he's ready, and Kevin says he's ready. He goes inside. Virgil pours some poison to stop his heart, and temporarily, then gives him an EpiPen, and tells him that the poison will shut him down, the pen will start him up, and he says brain will be fine up to 5 minutes. He will give him the shot long before that, and he asks if he's done this before, and Virgil says the guy on the pillar, his name, and we find out the guy on the pillar, his name is Edward, and he's living a breathing success story, and he kind of helped him out. And Kevin says he just so he knows he doesn't want to die, and Virgil says, of course not, life is precious. He asks him if he just drinks the poison. He almost does until Patty stops him. And she says she's glad he's finally taking actions, but they need to think about this for a second. This is a big step for him. And they don't really know Virgil, of course. She doesn't know if he's crazy, and she thinks he's a pedophile. He tells her to shut the fuck up and asks her if she wants him to do the things and to do this, and she says she does. He says Laurie told him he was psychotic, that he belongs to a mental hospital like his dad, and he tells his father said they went away because he listened to what the boys told him to do. He takes the poison and says goodbye to her. She tells him to stop, and he asks how long it usually takes to. He collapses, foams in his mouth, and he says he knows it hurts, but it won't be long now. Now, you think that Virgil's going to help him out. You think he's going to take that EpiPen and help him out, which he does, but nothing happens. He then pulls out a gun and just kills himself. So Virgil just killed himself out of nowhere, and then Kevin is dead. Michael comes in, and just to confirm that Kevin's dead, he picks up his dead body to drag Kevin away, and that's how the episode ends. So yes, Kevin Garvey, as we know it, is dead right now. This ritual failed, and I was so shocked that it failed. I really thought that Virgil was sincere, but no, we see that he's really not. In fact, I think he's pretty senile, I have to say. Now, my biggest question, did Virgil intentionally mean to kill Kevin? I'm not really sure. I mean, I feel like this was kind of a plan. I feel like he meant to kill himself. Obviously, you don't just kill yourself out of no reason. I feel like Virgil was going to do this regardless. It had nothing to do with Kevin. He was just going to do this regardless. So I'm not going to blame that on him. Obviously, he killed himself. He had reasons for doing that. So whatever. Okay, he killed himself. But then as far as this whole thing with Kevin goes, how is he going to still be a character on the show? Because we know he's still going to be on the show. You guys know that Kevin's going to live, right? There's no way they're going to pull a Sean Bean. I don't see them doing that anytime soon. If they do, that'd be really cool, but I don't think this is the show to really do that. So I really think that Kevin's not going to be dead. He's probably going to be resurrected next episode, and we'll have to see what happens with that. Virgil and Michael, what is going on between these two? Is he getting sexually abused? Are they just in a very intense relationship? It would make sense as to why Michael doesn't want to have sex with Jill. That would definitely make sense because of what's going on with Virgil. I can totally understand that, but now Virgil's dead. Is Laurie's theory accurate? I think it is. I think Kevin really needs to listen to Laurie's theory very well. I think definitely she has a good possibility, and I hope her and Jill reconnect. I hope they do. Obviously, she's back. Jill wants nothing to do with her, but I hope that for Jill and her sake that they do reconnect. I hope that happens. We'll have to see what happens with that. As far as what's going on with Patty's situation, do you think that Patti, I think that was the last time we've seen Patti, by the way. We saw Patti for the last time in this episode, I don't think we're going to see her anymore. But do you think that Patti was a conscience, or was she a powerful adversary? What do you think she really was? That's really what I want to know what's going on. John and the handprints. John is going to find out at some point, because obviously they're going to match, and we'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. Is Nora ever going to come back? I'm not really sure. I mean, if Kevin's dead, obviously not, but is Nora ever going to come back? We'll have to see. If Kevin is dead, great way to go out. I have to say, great way to go out. He did whatever he could to protect his family, which is what he would do, and I love that. I mean, it was definitely a really great way to go out. But obviously, I don't want Kevin to die. I mean, why would I want Kevin to die? He's been through so much. He's had so much going on in his life. There's no reason for Kevin to die. I really hope they don't kill him off, and I don't think they're going to, but right now it seems like he's dead, which we'll have to see what happens in the next episode, but right now, at least, that's what it seems like. What happened between Laurie and Tommy? That's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I thought this was an amazing episode. So shocking. I mean, this show genuinely is shocking. I love that. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. We'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for tonight's episode of Fargo. And by the way, guys, I am not watching Supergirl tonight, and I'll tell you guys why. Supergirl, as we know, is episode 5. It was supposed to be episode 4, which is airing next week. I'll review both episodes next week, and I will see you guys for that next week. But that's where my next review will be for Fargo, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.